as Aki was talking, I just remembered a story I usually tell of a woman who lived in a hard-to-reach area. She was so poor that the church took care of all her needs. They took care of her medical bills, her food, everything. But she boasted all the time that she had a son who lived abroad, who used to write to her letters and send her pictures. So one day the pastor of the church was tired. He went to her and said, let me see the letters from this son who is able to write to you every week, send you pictures, and can take care of you. Guess what? The lady goes down below her bed, pulls out several pots, and they were all full of dollars, USA dollars. This probably was the richest woman in that entire community. She was unstoppable, but she was living like a pauper. Because she didn't know that what she had was legal tender. She thought there were pictures. I came to tell you, sisters, that each one of us is unstoppable. Not because of what we've achieved, not because of what we can do, but because we are created in the image of God. We came packaged, wired, gifted, talented. And so each one of us here is unstoppable. The problem is when we are ignorant, when we lack the knowledge to know the treasure that is in each one of us. So many times we look over and the grass is always greener. I was going to speak at a meeting in Nairobi sometime 2 years ago, and I called on a friend who is also a speaker. So I was telling a friend, and I said, I'll give her part of my time because she really speaks well. And the person told me, you don't fear, she might outshine you. And I was shocked. I said, nobody can, because there is one Irene, one original, one masterpiece. So nobody can. There is no one who can do, none can do the things I do. With the touch, with the talent, with the gifting. Ladies, we are unstoppable. And as we sit here today, many of us have stopped because of what life has thrown at us. Some of us are going through difficult times. And there is a way situations define us. They clip our wings. I come from Busoga. In Busoga, once you lose a husband, they define you, they give you a name. They saw your name. Even when you're an unloved child, an unloved wife, they say you monobe. And in Busoga here, even kids would know, but that wife is a monobe. So for us, circumstances define you. And so you get to a point and you just stop. When you're divorced, they say you're a divorcee. When you fail to get a job, they can say you are cursed. Nothing works out in your life. And so you take on another definition and you live like this woman who had legal tender. Dollars, not Uganda shillings, not your Uganda shillings, dollars. And they were in several pots and she was living like a real pauper. Ladies, we each have a story. And usually it is that story, the things that we go through, that determine whether we stop or we can be unstoppable. I worked with Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda. Anybody knows Dr. Ndugu? Each time you go to him and say, sir, people are saying this, he says, you are unstoppable. So sometimes I would look and say, who is unstoppable? If you go to him and say, no, people are not happy, he says, did you expect them to celebrate? Why? Because you are unstoppable. Yeah? And so that's the message I bring to us today. Patience, this is not just a topic you chose. This is a word that we need with all the challenges that we are going through. And women, even as I said that we each have a story, culture didn't make it easy for us. When the devil wants to fight us, he puts everything in culture because we never question culture. And so culture has hit us hard. There are countries where widows would be banned. Widow banning, because culture is telling you you are useless without a man. There are cultures where girl children are killed because people want male children. There are cultures where our young girls have just been forced into marriage. There are cultures, even in Uganda, where women have to be raped and it's okay. The men have to prove their prowess by putting you down and then they can marry you. What are they communicating? You are useless. Your feelings don't matter. So women, we have been through things that have wounded us so much. When a girl child conceives, the boy continues in school. But the girl has to bear the shame. Nobody will even ever get to know the father of that child. And so all these things have left us in a place that has stopped us, yet we are unstoppable. Am I with you?
Yes, you are.
I just want to share briefly my story. I put my story in a book, and I'm not going to labor because I want you to buy the book. But also I don't have that much time. Okay? Each one of us comes to the world in a unique way. Most of us would want to come into the world in a nuclear family with a loving father and a mother. And probably many of us have. That is not my story. I was born a very unwanted child. Very unwanted. Actually, the picture I have there, I think I was 13, but but I don't have any other picture earlier than that. I don't have a picture of a baby when I was a baby, because that's how unwanted I was. My mother was only 14 when she conceived me. And she didn't conceive me with anybody else, but with her sister's husband, who was an elder sister. My mother comes from a family of 10, and her sister is a third born, and she's a 10th born. And so she goes to live with her sister and conceives. And she's 14. So the wisest thing to do was to get rid of this pregnancy and save the family the shame, and also save herself the shame. I'm glad she carried her pregnancy to full term. Because today, I happen to be her only child. So guess what would have happened if she had succumbed? So my mother is unstoppable. And so I never had the privilege of growing up with a father because of the circumstances that surround my coming on earth, but I had a loving grandmother. She was a born-again Christian who would repent and say, "Hey, I've been sleeping with your husband, but God should forgive me." And so she did not try to make me bitter with anybody. I remember my auntie coming to the village to visit, and I would go and kneel down and greet her, and she would never answer me. And I would go to my grandmother and say, "Why doesn't she answer me?" And she said, "That's your mother. Go and kneel down and greet her." And so all growing up, she never answered me. When my father passed on in 1996, after I had even finished university and I was working, my father died when he was working in Geneva. So when the body was brought back, I went and knelt down and greeted her. And for the first time she said, "Irene," and she answered me. For me, that was a big thing for me. Today, I have I talk to my siblings. My father's heir is here, Arthur, and we are friends. And for me, that is part of the journey. unwanted child who threatened to tear down an entire family today has become the most significant. And has brought and restored the entire family together. And so I've told you a bit about my growing up. Many of us come from families that are broken, that are dysfunctional. Many of us carry father wounds. Many of us carry mother wounds. Maybe it's a stepmother who said you'll amount to nothing. Many of us carry even siblings' wounds, several wounds. You know, the family was meant to be the place of love and nurture. But it has become the place where most people are wounded. Most people have suffered their greatest pain in the family, and they have stopped. But I'm here to tell you that you're unstoppable, regardless of how you are conceived. Because destiny predates conception. And if you came into the world the way I did, I keep telling people, I agree with what Rick Warren says. Rick Warren has written a great book called The Purpose-Driven Life. And he says there are no illegitimate children. They are illegitimate parents. So if you're here walking around feeling illegitimate, it's a lie. Because God has a purpose for every life on earth. Your destiny predates your conception. Going to the workplace, I've worked with government for 28 years. The first 14 years I was at the Directorate of Citizenship and Immigration Control. The last 40 years I've worked with Mama Janet, and so I've been in government for 28 years, and it's been also a place of its own woundedness. Hey. The first time I suffered public disgrace was in the workplace. I was a young immigration officer. I didn't know anybody knew me. But I was heading an office which people used to refer to as a gold mine. Work permits, special passes, people, you know. So I woke up one morning and my name was in the papers. I was a thief. I had houses in every rich suburb in Kampala. I was staying in a 2-room house. They said I had cars registered in all my names, in so many different cars. They said my children were going to an international school, yet I didn't have even half a child. And the story went on and on. Because of my background of rejection, I had this approval addiction. I wanted people to approve of me. I wanted people to like me. If I had anything that anybody said, I walked around to try and justify. Barbara is here. She's walked this journey of healing with me. Being in the papers and suffering that public disgrace brought healing to me. Because I could not convince the whole world that I'm not a thief. So from that time, I don't care what people think about, and I'm not pretending. When I was at the university, I got into a relationship. My first Prince Charming. My first love. And so, being in love was nice. It was the first time I fell in love. Second year at the university. We would stand and talk for hours near Africa Wall. We talked until the fellowship called me to God and said, my friend, you are a leader in the fellowship. You can't stand with a man there every night. And I kept thinking, why can't people mind their business? I'm in love. So after university, my first love, I call him first love in the book, goes for a PhD in the US. And I wait 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4, 5, 6. People are asking me, are you going to America? Is he gone? I don't know. I don't know. But I'm in love. Let me tell you one little secret. When he was leaving to go for his PhD, he told me, I've not put a ring on your finger yet, but I've put a ring on your heart. So who wouldn't wait for a man who has put a ring on their heart? So all my prime time was wasted with him. He never returned. And so I also know the wounds that come from a prolonged singlehood, where everybody is asking you, when are we eating the cake? You answer them. Tomorrow they ask, so the cake, and you're like, okay, once the cake is done, you will be the first to know. So I ended up married at 40. Yeah. I'm overtelling you the story, read the book. And so I've been married for the last 13 years. I've packed once. Why am I telling you all this? Charles Swindoll says that life is 10% what happens to you, but 90% how you react to it. You might go through pain, another person may go through pain, but how you react to that pain is what determines whether you'll be unstoppable. Because pain is part and parcel of this life. And I always tell people that in the very area the enemy wounds you, that's where God gives you authority to set other people free. So don't fear pain. The things that make you look and feel weak, they are the very things that God is going to use. They are the very things that make you unstoppable. Because if you never go through that, if you just stay in a comfort zone, you may never do anything with your life. Because it's out of the crushing that new wine comes. There will never be new wine if there is no crushing in your life. So if you're seated here, sister, and you want to give up because of the pain that you have been through, I stand as an encouragement that it doesn't matter what you have been through. You are unstoppable. Let me share 3 key lessons that I have learned in this journey. When I was writing my book, my first book, only book, first book, yes, so far. The first editor, I chose 2 editors. One who doesn't know me at all, and one who knows me very well. So the first one who doesn't know me cried and cried. I said, what is it? Have I written rubbish? He said, how do you go through all this and remain jovial? How? You've been through this, you've been through that. I said, my friend, edit the book and stop crying. But these are the lessons that I've learned, and there are only 3. I'll share them briefly and see. My sisters, one of the key lessons I have learned, if we are going to be unstoppable, you must dethrone your pain. Pain stops us. Pain clips our wings, and we cease to fly, yet we are created to soar. I said already that the family which was meant to be a place of love became a place of real woundedness for many of us. And that woundedness that happens to us when we are growing up, we are in a culture that does not talk much about those things. And so it becomes, these wounds become festering wounds. And they begin to affect every area of our lives. And we usually take on 3 roles when those wounds are not healed, when they become festering. The first one, we become victims. Victims wallow in self-pity. Victims are prone to depression. Victims relinquish every responsibility to change their lives. They hand it over to another person. They blame their father, their mother, their judge, the government, the coming government. They have no responsibility to change their lives. The second role we take on is that of a prosecutor. Anything that reminds us of that pain or of the person who abused us, we become the greatest advocates. We criticize, we condemn, we quarrel. We become prosecutors. We never see anything good with anybody else because we are numbing the pain. We are numbing the sense of worthlessness inside of us. Have you ever sat with people who know which marriage is about to break, which one broke, which one? Have you ever sat with those people? And you wonder, are you a researcher? It is their way of numbing the pain. They want to get a bigger crowd of people who are suffering so they are not suffering alone. And many times we gravitate between the victim and the prosecutor. The third role we take on when we don't dethrone our pain is that of a rescuer. Rescuers take on a superficial happiness. They are extremely happy. They are excited. They laugh and you wonder, what are you laughing at today? But it's numbing the sense of feeling useless inside them. Rescuers do many things for people. You're the one who is available to do this and do that. Not because you're kind, but you're numbing the pain within you. So, ladies, even as we help and are there for everybody else, are you helping from a place of woundedness or you are actually kind? Do you just want to feel needed? Because part of my woundedness, I was there for everybody. I had friends. I filled my bedroom, my sitting room, everywhere with people. People will tell me, but you can't keep all these many people around you. They will destroy you. Because people must earn the right to be in your inner space. Be at peace with everybody, but not everybody is supposed to be in your bedroom. Even God himself, when he walked the earth, he had the 1, he had the 3, he had the 12, he had the 72, he had the 120, he had the 500 who saw him ascend. If you want to bring 500 in a space of 3, you're going to be destroyed. You'll be stopped. When we do not dethrone pain, we become people who are driven for recognition. Driven to achieve, driven to be significant. I have lived for 53 years, and I know that drivenness is not the way to greatness. I read a little book long ago called Ordering Your Private World by Gordon MacDonald. If you can get that little book, it was a game changer for me. And he said that there are 2 types of people in the world. Those who are driven and those who are called. C-A-L-L-E-D. And he said those who are driven are always exhausted. They are out of breath. Everybody they bring in their inner circle leaves them feeling exhausted and disillusioned. But we don't have to live like that. And life is lived in seasons. You might be struggling to be significant when you are in a planting season. The person you're looking at is in a harvest season. So you must walk the process. You can't just jump and be in a harvest season. If you go to the UK and it is winter, you don't run. and say, no, me, I've been praying for 40 days. I have to change the weather. You go and buy warm clothing because it is winter. So ladies, understand your season. Because some of us have been stopped due to constant comparison. I've grown up with Barbara. If I start comparing myself to her, I'm going to just fail to get out of my bed. Let me tell you, she has 7 campuses now. I don't even have half a campus at school. Yes. Seasons. Let me quickly talk through how to get over this destroying of pain, and I'll wrap up with the other 2 points quickly. This has been my way of overcoming, of dethroning pain. Connect to a power that is bigger than you. I wish I could stand here and tell you the 7 steps of dethroning pain, or the 5 steps, or the 5 P's of getting over pain. This has been the game changer. Connecting to God. The other thing is forgive. When we fail to forgive, it's like we are drinking poison and thinking the other person is going to die. It is us who die from unforgiveness. And unforgiveness stops us. It doesn't matter, you can justify it however much you want, but you must get to a point where you let go. Replace the lies. What are the things you've told yourself? I'm not good enough. I'm not adequate. I can't speak like that. I can't do that. I can't be like... Nobody is asking you to be like so-and-so. Because you cannot be unstoppable when you are being like another person. But you must get to a place where you replace those lies with truth. With the truth. Because those are the limiting beliefs that prevent us from thriving. When we focus on something, we remove the attention from ourselves. Me, myself, and I. Me, who was born unwanted. Me, who did not get this. Me, who did... So, focus on something. Find places to serve other people. That is a game changer. And it has worked for me. And finally, build an affirming, supportive community around you. Sisters, we were not created to live in isolation. What pain does, it isolates you. It covers you with shame, and you fear to interact. Refuse to be isolated. Build a community. Connect to people. If you're going to be unstoppable. The second thing, my second lesson that is going to make us unstoppable is discipline. Let me tell you, there is no one you see today who is achieving anything who has not been disciplined. I'm sorry to pick on Barbara. I've watched this woman wake up at 4 a.m. for years. 4 a.m. I've seen her at her school at 6 a.m. and she hugs every child coming in. So if you stand and say it is luck, you lie. Discipline is the self-control that is gained by obeying laid out rules, the ability to be consistent at that which is hard. Discipline is a training, it's an equipping, it's a mentorship, it's a becoming process. The problem with our generation is that we want public glory, public victories. We want to be big in public. Steve Covey says, private victories precede public victories. You want to be unstoppable? Bring discipline in your private life. That is what flows out to the public. It is the small things we do when nobody is seeing that produce the big things that everybody wants to see. I want to invite you to watch just a 2 minutes video just to illustrate this point of discipline, and I'll be able to say my last point and sit down.
Anytime you see a person who is doing anything exceptional, it is not luck. And let me just even be bold to say it's not favor. It's not favor. It's not grace. God is not selective with grace. God's grace is abundant to all. But there is something called frustrating the grace of God. Being graced by God is God's investment in you. Being disciplined is your investment in yourself. When Paul is saying I can do all things through Christ, he's not talking about grace. He's talking about discipline. He says in a race, the reason why people win is because they are temperate in all things. Never look at somebody who is exceptional in any field and just say, God has blessed you. That is the lazy man's observation. If you believe where you are going is far, then what you load must be deep. You can't believe God is sending you on a far journey and load yourself light. Your tank must be full. And you must be in charge of everything that is required for you to be that kind of person God wants you to be.
You want to be unstoppable? Discipline. Let me say one thing about the third D and sit down. I call the third D deployment. Deployment is a military term referring to the movement of troops or equipment to a place or position for military action. Even if you dethrone pain, even if you're disciplined, but never deploy the gift, never deploy your skill, you cannot be unstoppable. And to deploy skill, you must have it. So one of the ways we are going to be unstoppable is when we skill ourselves, sisters. And not just talk about the women movement and how women are being marginalized. If you have something to bring to the table, you are unstoppable. And this will come as we discover and celebrate our uniqueness. Because we are each unique, with unique gifts, with a unique assignment. We each have a path clearly marked out for us. One of the things I learned many years ago, and I talk about a lot, and I'm saying this and sitting down, believe me, is that each one of us must connect to our hedgehog. The hedgehog concept is taught by Jim Collins in one of his great books, From Good to Great. And Jim Collins says the world has two kinds of people, the foxes and the hedgehogs. He says foxes know many things, many little things they can do. But the hedgehog knows one big thing. When it's attacked, it rolls itself into a ball and then has those things which are like thorns and nothing can come near it. And he says once you find the one big thing that you were created to do, you are unstoppable. You're able to move from good to great. Because being unstoppable means that we also move from average, from mediocrity to greatness. And to put it simply, your hedgehog is the intersection of what you're passionate about, what you could easily be the best in the world at. You know, there's something you could easily be the best in the world at, something you're extremely good at. and what powers your economic engine. Once you find that intersection, you are unstoppable. And so, if you've not had anything from me, let me just repeat this. Each one of us is unstoppable. If you had told my family over 50 years ago that I would amount to anything, they would have laughed at you. If you had told anybody with that little picture I showed, they would have laughed at you. But that whole story changed. I could talk for hours about this, but I picked these 3 things. Dethrone your pain. Discipline is key. And deploy your gift. Find your lane. You are unstoppable. So go and soar because you are unstoppable.